Hello, church. How you doing? It's Wednesday, March the 20th. I hope you're doing well in the Lord today. Wanted to take another minute or two just to encourage you in your walk with Christ. Wanted to talk to you today about a particular word, and the word is craving. What do you crave? We now have, I guess, right at the 2-week mark for Lent, and a couple of weeks ago, many of us we prayed and we sought the Lord about something that He would have us to forsake or to give up for about 40 days or 6 weeks. And as many of you know, for me, that was coffee and candy. Those are two things that I found myself craving throughout the day, not just in the morning, not just at one particular time, but really throughout the day for quite some time now. I, like many of you probably, when I would get up in the morning, I would crave a hot cup of coffee. During the day, I found myself craving sugar. Sugar, as you know, is just incredibly addictive. And we have a little bit, and it fires off some synapses in our brains, and we then crave more and more and more of it. And I was finding myself, when I would get stressed or anxious, wanting a bag of sugary goodness to satisfy, and it just led to more cravings and more cravings, and it took me to a place I really didn't want to be in, and it wasn't good for my health. So I've replaced those things. Ultimately, when I'm sensing those cravings now over the past couple of weeks, I'm going to the Lord in prayer, and using those times to pray for specific people or specific things in our church, certain needs. It's kind of funny though, just this morning. So I've replaced coffee with hot tea. So I'm having hot tea in the mornings and learning to like it a little bit. But I was looking at some news this morning on my computer, and there was some story that said scientists have discovered that if you drink hot tea every morning, that you increase your risk for esophageal cancer. So I was thinking, yeah, great God, what are we going to do about that? I'm sure I'll be okay for the next 4 weeks or so. But I hope that you, whatever, if you're participating, that you're when you're sensing those cravings, when you're sensing the desire to give in to those cravings, that you're taking those things to the Lord. Ultimately, in our life as believers, we should be craving Jesus Christ. We should be craving His Word. So I was looking. I think this came from this morning's reading. I've gotten off myself a little bit, but in Deuteronomy chapter 28. The Lord is laying out for Moses and for the people the idea of blessing and cursing. And it's conditional. God is telling His people as He's getting them ready to go into the land, if you do this, it's going to lead to blessing. If you do something else, it will lead to cursing. So let me read just a couple of excerpts from this passage, from this chapter. This comes from Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 1. And if you faithfully obey the voice of the Lord your God, being careful to do all His commandments that I command you today, the Lord your God will set you high above all the nations of the earth. And all these blessings shall come upon you and overtake you. Wow. What would it look like to be overtaken by blessing, by the Lord's blessings? That's what we all desire, to live in that state of blessedness. And then a little bit later in the chapter, the Lord speaks a different word. Verse 15, but if you will not obey the voice of the Lord your God, or be careful to do all His commandments and His statutes that I command you today, then all these curses shall come upon you and overtake you. And then he goes on to list the different cursings that will befall us if we don't obey the voice of the Lord. So my simple word to you today would be to crave the Lord's word and to crave obedience to his word. Many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with that great hymn, Trust and Obey. The hymn goes, trust and obey, for there's no other way to be happy in Jesus than to trust and obey. We probably don't emphasize obedience to the Lord's commands the way that we should. We are under grace. We're not bound to the law of Moses, but our hearts, as God's redeemed and saved people, should be to obey the Lord in all things. We don't obey to try to make him happy with us. We don't obey to try to earn something, but we obey because our hearts have been transformed. So we want to serve him. We want to do what he calls us to do for his glory and for our good and for the good of other people. God bless you. We'll check in with you soon. I hope to see you this Sunday. Goodbye.